Every single day we make decisions, big decisions, small decisions, and a lot of them happen on a day we are not emotionally strong enough to do so. Sometimes we just say, oh, I don't want to think about this. I can't decide today. Oh, could you catch me another day when I'm in a better place to decide that? And that's true just about everything we do. Believe it or not, we emotionally decide what we're going to eat. We say when we're going to go to sleep, if we're going to call a friend with whom we've had conflict, oh, I'm not up to it today. You know, when you're saying all those things, this is really coming from an emotional base. You've been triggered not to feel strong about something. It's really important on days where you make really large decisions to feel emotionally strong, to feel mentally ready, and have some physical strength, not be fatigued. And, you know, we make these big decisions in our life all the time. What college am I going to go to when I get out of high school if I have the privilege of going to college? Should you and I get married now? Should we wait a year? Oh, is it time to have a baby? We've been married 6 years. Let's buy a house. Or what apartment can I rent? I need to go look for an apartment. I can't live with my parents forever. My friends and I need to get a place. What are we going to do? And then the other big one, I need a car. Well, my parents bought me my first car, or I have a junker for a first car, but I really need to go out and get a car. I have a job now and my car's not reliable, or I have, it's old and I'm afraid that it's not going to get me home at night. Whatever the reason, buying a car is quite the emotional decision. And I think we go about it all the wrong way. You go, oh, I really like that car. I love that color. Oh, I'm going to go get that. And you don't even think about what that means. Well, I want you to do some simple math. Remember, you don't have to be a math genius to do simple math. Math is what you need to do in almost every decision you make, especially these kinds of purchases. So, what kind of driving do you do? First question. How far do I drive every day to work and back? Or how far do I drive to school every day and back? Or how much do I use my car every day and how many miles do I put on it? Do you know that that is really the factor in deciding whether you lease or buy? That simple factor right there before you run into a dealership to buy your favorite car, and before they spend 5 hours trying to do the paperwork and your eyes glaze over and you have absolutely no idea what to do by the end of the day, and you just want to sign, I just want to sign the papers, get my key and go home. And there's a lot of decisions between, oh, that's my favorite car, I'd like to drive it, and getting the key and taking it home. We've touched on insurance and auto insurance in another segment, and that is really important as well. And you need to take that into consideration. How much will your car cost you in insurance, where you live, all those different factors. But let's go back to, should I lease or buy? All right, so now I've assumed you've done the math. I drive 42 miles a day minimum. Might as well round that up to 50. So you drive 50 miles per day, Monday through Friday. Do the math, multiply that 250 by 52 weeks, and that will tell you the minimum amount of miles you need in leasing a car. If you buy a car, the miles won't matter. You drive wherever you want, whenever you want. You still have a loan on the car, but at the end, when you pay off the loan, the car is yours. No one cares about the miles. If you lease a car, everyone cares about the miles. There's usually 3 choices when you lease a car. 10,000 miles, which is the minimum, 12,000 miles, or 15,000 miles per year. Okay, so now go back to the math you did. You drive 50 miles per day during the week, and then, so you multiply that by that 250 by 52, and then you have all those weekends. How much are you going to drive on the weekends? Average it out. How many trips do you take? Oh, I drive from here to Las Vegas once a month. Oh, I go to San Francisco to see my friends every other month. You have to factor those numbers in. I had a friend tell me that when they got too high on their miles, they had to sit the car down, park it, and not use it. Well, that's really great if you have another car at your disposal. But if you don't have another car at your disposal, you have to really, really watch your miles. I'll give you a funny story. My husband, we leased a Bolt EV because he wanted an electric car. The electric car, we're allowed 10,000 miles a year, which means we're allowed 28 miles per day approximately. Well, driving that car is so much fun that after 6 weeks, there was already 2,300 miles on the car. That was a quarter of our miles, and we had only been into it 6 weeks. So guess what we did? We switched cars. My husband now drives the car that's paid off and that doesn't matter how many miles, and I put on 12 miles a day for my work, and so I have the Bolt EV. You think I was pretty clever with that, don't you? But it didn't occur to me until afterward that we would have to do that. So you need to do that calculation. Then when you go in, you need to think about what a lease means. They are basically renting you a car for 3 years, 2 years sometimes, but 3 years. So the dealership is lending you a car for 3 years and saying, okay, when you bring it back, if you bring it back with the right amount of miles and there's no dents and scratches, you can turn it in and we'll take it back and you can drive off with a new one. That sounds wonderful. And if you can do that, leasing a car makes sense. It's not a lot of money down. You stay under your miles. You take care of the car. And in the end of 3 years, you go in, you say, here's your car back. And they say, thanks. And then you say, I'd like that one. And you pick up a whole nother car. You drive off for 3 years. You follow the rules, no problem. But what if you were allowed 30,000 miles for your 3-year lease and you put on 45,000 miles because you weren't paying attention? At the end of that lease, you have to pay $3,750 at 25 cents per mile you went over. You can't turn it in without paying that. Now, there are different leases and different rules, but for the most part, if you go over your lease miles, it's in the fine print in your agreement, you will pay X amount of cents per mile afterward. Think about that. You're going to have to hand in that car and almost $4,000 unless you buy your leased car. I have done that once in my life. I leased a car. Then at the end of the 3 years, I bought the car. Even though I was at my mileage, I said, no, I'll keep the car. Then I got a 5-year loan on that car that I'd already had for 3 years. Now I'm going to have it 8 years. I had the car for 8 years. It was an 8-year-old car before I ever paid it off. And as soon as I paid it off, I ran in and got a better car. So I said, I've got an 8-year-old car now and it's got, 90,000 miles on it or 100,000 miles. And now what do I do? So I'm going to say, if you're going to go over the miles, if you need that car for everything and it's only you, buy your car. You can write your car off on your business even if you purchase the car. The only way a lease works is if you don't go over your miles, if you're going to turn it in and get a new car at the end. Or if you're married and one of you only drives around with the kids or does errands or has a short commute, that lease will work for you. But in general, unless you can follow every rule of the lease, don't lease, buy. Or you can use a bike, public transportation, or your feet and walk. So if you're as married to your car as many people here in Southern California are, you have to make those decisions up front. So before you go in, do the calculation, get in an emotionally strong place. Don't make a decision based on a whim. Don't buy such a big thing or lease such a big thing if you're in a state of confusion. Get in a good place where you can handle that salesperson who is going to be relentless to get you to take a car with you at the end of that conversation. So be in a strong mental, emotional, and physical place. Do your math ahead of time. Determine what you can pay. Determine what you need that car for. And then, by all means, lease or buy, but do it intelligently. Thanks.